just some quick background on me. I've been here at Chafee for a little over 10 years. Started in 2007, part-time, and I teach at other colleges also. First thing I want to show you, I use a lot of PowerPoints that you'll see in the lecture videos. First thing I want to show you is that this is a map of the world. This kind of greenish blob is called Europe, and that's where most of my study has been. I've mostly studied more modern European history. So I know a lot more about European history than really any other region in the world, which can be good if you're interested in European history and kind of bad if you're interested in anything else on the planet. And in general, I also assume that a lot of people are probably going to struggle with a lot of stuff in this class, because you might remember before you were allowed to register for classes at this college, they had you do a thing called an assessment test. And that was exactly what it sounds like. It assessed where you are on a kind of scale in terms of reading, writing, and math. Sound familiar? You remember taking this? Okay. So 3 different categories, and the colleges study the results of those tests, not just on your personal level to try to get you placed into the right class, or the right English class, or the right math class, or whatever to start. But they also kind of aggregate all these numbers and try to figure out our general incoming students, what do they need help the most with, where should the college basically be investing its money. So they take the results of these assessment tests extremely seriously. And one it's kind of outdated from a while ago. I have some statistics about the results of this one from 2004 to 2005. And I want to ask you, just as a class, what do you think the percentage of students assessed as underprepared, which is a nice way of saying deficient, in either of the 3 categories? What percentage of the people taking the test do you think didn't score very well in one of those 3 categories? Half? 50%? 80? Any other ideas?
75%.
75? Okay. So around 70 to 80 seems to be your consensus. How many percentage-wise do you think are deficient in all 3 at the same time? 20? 30? 50? Okay. And usually one of the first questions they ask you in that kind of test is, why are you coming here? What's your end goal? Percentage of people who respond to that question, how many do you think they declared transferring to a university as their goal in coming to the college? 80, 90? So, okay. Here are the numbers. So 98%, virtually everybody who took the test, were underprepared, deficient in one of the 3 categories. About 70%, 7 out of 10, are deficient in all 3 at the same time. And I consider that to be a giant indictment of the high school system, because a lot of people come to this college right out of high school. And these numbers are shocking, because you're probably asking yourself the same question right now that I used to ask when I was a substitute in high school. Why are all these students graduating from high school when they go to the college and they got this going on? What's going on at the high school level if they're not preparing you? They tell you all the time they're preparing you for college, right? That's what they told me, at least, when I was in high school. Does that resonate with you? Do you remember such statements?
Yeah.
Are they really preparing you for college, though? They're just telling you stuff. So I'm not showing you these numbers to make you feel bad or guilty or dumb or anything like that, because the high school system, at least in this general area, has gigantic problems, to put it lightly. So if you're deficient or underprepared in these categories, it might not really be your fault. You just might have gotten involved in a crappy system that wasn't doing its job. And I used to ask, because at lunchtime I would go eat lunch in the same room as vice principals and other teachers and stuff, and I'd ask them, what's going on here? And you know what their answer was? Anyone want to take a guess what their answer was?
I don't know.
No, usually they didn't want to answer it, and they would ban me from coming back to that school. I was banned from many high schools. I just wasn't allowed to go back there anymore. So they went in the computer system and erased me.
Oh my God.
And what does that tell you about the system? They would rather get rid of the people asking the questions than solve their goddamn problems. So, again, I'm not showing you these numbers to make you feel intimidated or dumb or guilty or anything like that. This is just for honesty's sake, right? So we can have an honest, real conversation. Just from these numbers, most people will struggle in this class. Because guess what? History is reading and writing intensive. That's what historians do. We ask questions, we do research, which is mostly reading old stuff, and then we write up our conclusions, our ideas. We don't usually do math so much, but it's reading and writing intensive. So if you think that you're in kind of underprepared with those categories, that's not to say that you should like drop the class and give up on life and everything like that. But Chafee knows these numbers. That's why they give the assessment test. It's one reason. And they have invested tens of millions of dollars in success centers and more English faculty, in reading comprehension classes. I mean, just across the board to help students that are in this situation improve. And improve from, honestly, a lot of times reading at about a 7th grade level, getting it up to 80% of your goal is to transfer to university. And we've got, what, 3-4 years to do it, maybe, right? It's community college. If you go here full time, you're expected to be transferring in 3 years or so. So we're talking going from 7th grade reading level to transferring to Stanford in 3 years. And it's a major task. And I think it's one of the greatest challenges in education. That's why I like teaching community college. But Chafee knows these numbers, and they have invested heavily. And they're one of the leaders in the whole country in figuring out how to use skill centers and writing centers and all this kind of stuff. Other colleges study our system to figure out how to do it. So you're in a really good college to get up to speed really, really quickly. And the teachers all know these numbers. We talk about this stuff all the time. And just for honesty's sake, you might struggle. And a good way to diagnose if you feel like this is going to be difficult for you is just open up the textbook to any random page and just read a few paragraphs. If you feel like you're struggling with the terminology or the level of the writing, then you might want to consider taking some reading comprehension classes in the English department. All right? Okay, and really, the worst thing you can do if you feel like you're struggling is to not ask for help. I'm here to help you. That's why I like teaching, is I like helping people. And that's why I also got put all the lectures into video so you can watch that on your own time, and we can talk about how to help you in class 3 hours a week. All right? That's my goal, is to help you. But if you don't like me for some reason, and that's okay, a lot of people don't like me. If you just don't want to talk to me and you don't want to seek help from me, talk to each other, talk to other teachers, go to the library and talk to librarians, go to the multidisciplinary success center, talk to their full-time faculty that are paid well to help you. Talk to somebody. Seek help somewhere. The worst thing you possibly do is just sit out there and silently suffer. Okay? So don't do that. The whole college is built around the idea, we are here to help you. Okay? We are your employee. Not just in your registration fees, but in your taxes. We exist to help you. That's why we are here. A lot of us with our big degrees could have went out into the corporate world and got much higher paying jobs than we have now. But we choose to be here. And it's because we like helping people. For the most part, there's some jerk teachers out there just in it for themselves. I'll grant that. But most of us are actually decent kind of human beings. Okay, so that's just to show you some just general basic kind of information. Right? Still with me?
Yep.
Okay. And I also show this to you to kind of prepare you for this idea of struggle. Struggle is not a bad thing. Struggle is... Yikes. feel like it's going to fall apart. Yeah, I don't trust that at all. Let's see. Well, struggle is a really good thing for most of us, for almost all of us, because struggle really tests us and forces us to get better and stronger and kind of more self-reliant and seeking help. And it teaches you to develop all these skills. It makes you a stronger person. Martin Luther King used to call it the beautiful struggle. Because what happens to a person who never had to struggle in their life? What do they become when you might call them an adult? What happens with a person who never had to work hard for anything, from a young age all the way up through adulthood? What kind of person do they become?
They don't have any character.
Yeah, because they never had to really work hard for anything. They never had to, suffer a little bit. Everything was just handed to them. Struggle really makes us good, strong, independent people. And that doesn't mean you're always going to succeed in your struggle. Sometimes you don't make it. Right? But this is all learning experience, and as I say, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. But another part of struggle is that when you first encounter it, you can panic. And that's a natural emotional response to encountering something that seems overwhelming and impossible and so difficult you just want to give up. Does that make sense? And when I wanted to find a good image to show you for panic, I put the word panic into Google Images, and this is what it spit out. So I think that's a pretty good representation. So if you're sitting on a plane and look out the window and you see that, you're done. It's, you don't even have time to change your diapers at that point. It's over, because these planes travel, even the jalopies that Southwest flies travel at like 300 miles an hour. So if it's that close to you, game over. And then you get to see what's next, if anything. Get to experience that. But panic is a natural human reaction to feeling overwhelmed. And everyone experiences panic at some point. When you get a new job, what is the worst day of your new job? Every day. That's maybe just because you don't like the job. Well, what's generally the worst day of your new job? The first day. And why is that? Because everything's new. You don't really know what to do. Maybe the company gave you like a couple hours of like really crappy training that you forgot a couple weeks ago. But day one, you're thrown to the wolves, right? And you feel overwhelmed, you're stressed out, you're worried all the time because you're constantly questioning yourself. And what happens on day two? Is it just as bad?
Probably worse.
Well, maybe worse if it's a really horrible job. But what happens from day one to day two?
You start to calm down.
You start to calm down. Why?
It's
Maybe it doesn't get easier. You're doing the same task probably, but what's happened from day one to day two?
You now know what to expect.
You know what to expect. You learned a little bit. You didn't learn all of it because it's so overwhelming, but you got a little bit better at something to give you some confidence. Then day three, you learn a little bit more. So a few weeks later, if you chose to keep that job, hopefully you've learned enough where you're independent. You can do the work without this constant panic and having to find reassurance from someone else that you're doing the right thing. Does that make sense? For those of you that have ever done this kind of stuff before? And I'll tell you my personal story about the worst moment of panic in my little life. And granted, I've had a pretty stress-free life. It's been pretty awesome. I was a Chaffee student many, many years ago. Yikes, I'm trapped. Stuck on something. Getting old, so I have to sit down every once in a while.
Yeah.
I was a Chaffee student years ago, and I did my 3 years here at Chaffee and transferred to university. And when I was at Chaffee, I was a pretty good student. I got mostly A's. I can't remember what my GPA was. Who really cares? But it was mostly A's, so I was kind of used to getting A's pretty much across the board, right? Then I transferred to the UC system. And that's a whole nother level of difficulty. And it took me a little while to realize that. And it took me about a month because at the UC system, they're in a quarter system. So you do 3 quarters a year. So those classes are 10 weeks. It's kind of like our fast track classes at Chafee. So a month in, it's midterm time, right? And I had 3 classes, so I took 3 midterms, 2 D's and a C. Yeah, that was my reaction, except a little bit more extreme. It was more like, holy shit, am I going to fail out of this place and then have to go back home with my tail between my legs and beg my parents to let me back in the house and have to go get that crappy retail job then, be humiliated, right? So I was all used to getting, just kind of coasting through, working kind of hard and getting A's. And that same strategy got me 2 D's and a C at the UC. And that wasn't a day of panic. That was a whole weekend of panic. Of that thought constantly in my mind, right? If you ever had that kind of long-term experience with panic like that. So I got the grades back on a Friday, and that whole weekend was just self-doubt, just eating away at you. And there were kind of 2 people that I talked to on Monday about it finally. I had this little on-campus job in a bookstore, and one of my managers knew I wasn't my normal squirrely self, I guess, and asked me what was wrong. I said, well, I did real bad on these tests. I don't really know if I'm going to make it. Maybe I have to drop out. And he said, well, hold on. You're fairly smart. You should be able to figure out what you did wrong on the test and how to get better. And what you're feeling now is just panic. You're just feeling overwhelmed. You think it's impossible, but all you have to do is just kind of strategize and just kind of chip away at the mistakes you made. Does that make sense? It made sense to me. And he said, one of the greatest pieces of advice that I've ever gotten in my life, he said, it's never as bad as it first appears. Because when it first hits you, that's the moment of panic. But when you start to strategize and figure out how to do it better next time, that's how you get better at things. Does that make sense? So that was my biggest weekend of panic in my life. And like I said, it's not nearly as bad as a lot of people in their lives. I've had it pretty easy. So that's my spiel on panic. It's an emotional reaction, but you can overcome it if you work hard and you seek help and you strategize well and you figure out how to overcome it, how to basically become a better person, how to overcome the struggle. Does that make sense? So you can all do it. The very fact that you're here on this late at night means that you're dedicated and you have some kind of goal that's at the core of yourself somehow. Because not a whole lot of people want to be here at 9 o'clock at night. All right, so just kind of considering what you have gleaned about me and my background so far, just to kind of think openly for a moment, just as what do you think my parents did for a living? Where do I come from?
Construction teacher.
Teacher.
They're not teachers. You could keep throwing them out there. No class has ever gotten this question correct.
They were hippies.
Huh?
They were hippies.
Hippies. Maybe kind of philosophically, but not like actually doing it in their daily lives. They would like to be hippies. Put it that way. But for careers, what kind of careers do you think a person like me would have background in from their parents?
Therapist?
Nope. That's all you got? Teachers, hippies, and therapists?
Politician.
Nope. They hate politicians. Not law enforcement. Nope. I didn't hear that last one, but someone thought it was funny back there. Rappers? No, they hate rap too. Unless you're, I don't know, gift wrapping.
Lawyers.
Lawyers? No way. They hate lawyers too.
Huh?
Accountants.
I don't think they could imagine what accountants even do.
Graphic designers.
Graphic designers. No, you guys are going in a very intellectual direction that is not the right direction.
Oh, Were they just parents?
Retail.
Farmers.
Farmers, no. Do you guys know any farmers?
Yes.
I do, but I live on the other side of the mountain where there are actual farms and ranches and stuff, but I'm also cheap, and that's why I'm there. But no, they're not farmers.
I don't know what that's called.
I heard another one, but I can't remember what it was.
The people that run a mortuary? I don't know.
No.
Outside of the box. That's how you got it. Yeah.
Give us a hint.
Very blue collar. You guys know what blue collar means? You guys are all, most of your stuff is like what we call white collar jobs, like professional jobs that depend on like degrees and high education and stuff like that, like brain work. It's like salesman, no.
Fast food?
No. Well, I think my mom did fast food before she met my dad. But that wasn't a career, it was, young person job.
Concrete?
Concrete?
Yeah, like construction?
Nope. No construction.
Mechanic.
That's kind of close. My dad really likes working on cars, but he doesn't do it for a living.
Gardener.
Farmers?
No, not farmers.
Were they just parents?
My mom was mostly kind of like, I guess you'd call like housewife. I don't know if that term's really around anymore. Is it?
Yeah.
Housewife, homemaker, that kind of stuff? Yeah. Stay-at-home mom. That's one most people haven't heard. Stay-at-home mom. Right?
Yeah.
Because it's a default assumption in our sexist society that the mom stays home. Haven't run into that one yet? Or is that one breaking down to the point your generation doesn't assume those anymore? Yeah, you still hear it. No,
Warehouse. Warehouse?
That's really close. That's the closest anyone's ever gotten. My dad's a truck driver.
Okay.
So driving trucks, making deliveries. 45 years. Driving trucks and unloading boxes. So yeah. But yeah, to the point that my parents were shocked when I said I wanted to try Chaffey College. I didn't plan on going to college at all when I was in high school. At all. It was kind of like a whim to go to Chaffey College after high school. They expected me just to get a job and, work. And I did that for a little while and realized how much that sucks and went to college.
Are you an only child?
Nope. But I have two, what are they called? Stepbrothers? Half-brothers? Oh, God. Half-brothers. Share one parent but different moms? I don't know. Whatever the word is. So I have two older brothers, but they were raised by, different parents, basically, right? So one of them went to college, but I didn't really talk to him much. So I was basically the first person in my family to go to college. So I know what it's like to have no idea at all what is expected of you in going to college. I had no clue what college was about when I came to Chaffey. One of my favorite stories is that when I registered for my first Chaffey class, I went to the first day, got a copy of the syllabus, and had an assigned textbook, and went to the library to get that book. Because that's what we did in high school. You went to the library and got your free book. That was assigned to the whole class, right? And I went to the librarian and gave him my syllabus and said, I'd like to have this book, please. And they said, no, you have to go down to the bookstore and buy that damn thing. I said, that was a shock. What? I have to pay my money? I don't have any money. That's why I'm a college student. I have to go buy the book? And they had to point out, they had to walk outside with me and point. That's the bookstore down there. Go down there and get your book. So that's how little I knew about college when I walked onto Chaffey's campus for the first time. So that's my background. So I intimately know what it means to not be able to rely on your parents to tell you about how to be a successful college student. They had no advice for me. They couldn't help me because they had never gone to college themselves. So I had to ask friends. I had to talk to teachers. I had to kind of figure it out for myself as much as I could and get the best advice I possibly could from other people because my family didn't go to college. So I really sympathize with people that are what we call first-generation college students. So one of the great joys of my life at this point is helping students from that kind of background succeed in the community college and then figure out if they want to transfer and go to university, not just to transfer, but to target which schools to transfer to and how to make sure you get in. I went from Chaffey to UCLA to their history department as a student, and I've helped at least 30 students get into UCLA from Chaffey College personally by showing them the best way to make yourself known to get in. And I've helped students get scholarships at that place that paid them a full ride to go for free. They even gave them money. They gave them money on the side called a stipend, which is you get your room for free, you get your school for free, you get all your books for free, and they give you cash every month for spending money to go to the movies or whatever. So that's one thing I'll tell the whole class. If that's what you want to do, and not just for history but for other disciplines, we can talk personally before class or after class or whenever you have time. I'm also usually here on Tuesday afternoons for other meetings. And we can strategize the best place for you to go and figure out how to get you in there. And I write letters of recommendation, all that stuff. All right? So just throwing that out there. If anyone's interested, we can talk later. But I like to open it up with that question just to give you an inkling of my background. So questions about that at all? No?
What made you go to college, and did you know you wanted to be a history teacher?
Well, when I was in high school, I had a really good history teacher. And like he didn't do videos, he didn't do movies, none of that stuff. He'd start class, he'd give us a little like textbook assignment to get us going for 10 minutes. And at the end of that 10 minutes, he'd sit down in front of the class, and he would just start talking. And he'd just tell us stories about history. And it was great. I was fascinated. Probably most people in the class were falling asleep or something. He's an older guy. But I thought it was awesome because he'd just get up there and he just starts reciting all this stuff. It was like he was just sitting around telling stories and getting paid for it. And I thought, damn, that seems like a nice job. Sit in an air-conditioned room and tell stories and get paid a lot of money to do it. I mean, I could do that. So that kind of gave me the idea, but I didn't really pursue it much until after I got out of high school. And then I got to community college and thought, oh, this is way better than high school. So I immediately knew that I wanted to be a community college teacher. And I told my U.S. history teacher when I was a Chaffey student, I want to be you doing this job and getting paid. And she's one of my mentors that helped me advised me how to go through the system, go through all the steps. So yeah. And some of the teachers I had when I was a student here are still here. It's kind of strange to go to meetings with them now and they call me a colleague. It's kind of weird, but you can get over that eventually. It's kind of like being at the adult table at Thanksgiving. All of a sudden, you're not a little kid anymore. You get to sit at the big table. But yeah. Okay. Moving on to some maybe a little bit more fun. Just generally talking about the community college system. For a lot of people, it's really tough to kind of keep going through the community college level because they're doing all this general education stuff. Like, remember when I asked how many people actually want to take this class as a history student, actually care about the stuff you're going to hopefully learn in this class? And 40 people out of 40 raised their hand. That's most of you taking this class because it's one of these GE, general ed requirements, right? Just like I had to take statistics and biology and all this other stuff that I have very little memory of. But it's really difficult to get through community college because you have to take all these classes the vast majority you're not really interested in, right? So it's really is a struggle. And I remember 2-3 years at Chaffey seemed like it was taking forever because I had to take all these classes I just didn't really want to show up for. But the really good side of that is that if you're transferring to university, you finish all that general ed stuff here, and when you go to a university, you don't have to do that anymore. Like when I transferred to UCLA, right when I went in, I had a meeting with one of their counselors, and they looked at my transcript and said, okay, you did all your GEs at the community college, you're done with all that. And they said, well, you have to take 20 classes at UCLA to graduate, and 10 of them have to be higher level history because you're a history major. That means you have 10 left over. You get to do whatever you want. You need 10 more classes. Take whatever you want. Because I didn't have any more requirements. My GEs were done. So what kind of classes do you think I took?
Art.
Nope.
History.
More history, because I'm a history nerd. So I took 10 more history classes. Yeah, because I love it. Because it's fun. Because I looked in their schedule of classes, the list of all the classes they offer, and it was painful for me to pick 20 because there's way more than 20 I wanted to take. It was that much fun. That's what happens when you get into your major, when you're actually studying the stuff you care about. Life is beautiful. Imagine being a history major who wants to study this stuff. You get to read the history books day in and day out. You get to go to school and take all history classes. It's great. So whatever your majors are, that's what you're going to be almost totally focused on after you transfer and you're in the university. And that's why a lot of people, older people, like ancient people, they're now 38 years old, they often tell younger people that being at the university is one of the funnest times in your life, because you choose what classes, what time of day, you wake up when you feel like, you go to class, learn the stuff that you want to learn about, and you go off and go to parties or do whatever else you do on weekends. And you don't have to pay mortgages and change diapers and all this other kind of crap you have to do when you're an adult. So, you ever hear that from older people that have been to college and they say it's the best time of your life? It really often is, because after you graduate, if you have student debt, then you got to get one of these damn jobs and pay all this crap off. Yeah, once you get involved in something that's fun, you actually want to keep doing it. And a lot of people keep going, especially at UCLA, you can meet a lot of rich people. I know a lot of people that were getting like their 6th or 7th degree because they're enjoying college so much, they'd finish a bachelor's degree and then they'd start all over again in another discipline. Get another one. They don't need to work, they're rich. Yeah, there's a lot of people relatively out there in these universities that come from wealthy families and they just want to go to college forever because it's so much damn fun. Never heard of these people? Oh, once you get there, you will. They're around. And another great thing about the community college is for all these, when you go to a university, you'll run into a lot of people who think they're really smart because they got into the university right out of high school. And they're really elitist with it. They really like to kind of throw it around in people's face that, I got in here when I was 18. But a lot of them are still doing all their GEs right up to the semester that they're getting ready to graduate. Because guess what? Just like you guys regret having to take English classes or math classes or like whatever the bane of your existence is, that class you just totally hate, at a university they can put that off for 4 or 5 years. And they do. So that statistics class that you're afraid of, they put that off until their very last semester, to the point that if they don't pass that class, they're not graduating. And they've already sent out the announcements, and they got friends and family flying in from all over the country to be at their graduation. That's a lot of pressure to pass that statistics class. In case you haven't taken statistics yet, it sucks. No? Pain. It's all pain. It's the worst, most painful class I ever took in all of college. I took some pretty bad ones. But once you get into university, that's all cut off. You're just doing your major because you did all the stuff at the community college. And there's a kind of, the side benefit is that it actually gets more fun, and in some ways gets easier because you only have to focus on what you really want to focus on. So it becomes more fun and in some ways easier the further up the ladder you go. And there's another big benefit of community colleges, and that's the cost. So just in general, to get us thinking about this, how much do you think the community colleges cost for a full year of classes, just to register for a class, to be a full-time student? How much to be a full-time student at CSU, and how much to be full-time at UC? Any ideas?
I think Stanford was like 74.
Well, Stanford's a private school. They're not even on this.
53,000 for UC or 59, something like that.
53 is way high for UC.
Or
It's not that high. 53 is up around Stanford and USC. Those are the private schools that are way off this chart.
20 to 30.
20 to 30 for UC?
12,000
12,000 for UC? That's a little bit more than that. What about CSU?
It's like 12,000.
12,000? 6,000? What do you think of community college?
1,600.
1,600?
Yeah, just about.
Yeah. So maybe you guys are looking on the internet or something, but some of you are pretty damn close. To be a full-time at community college, just paying the registration fees and parking permits and that kind of stuff, somewhere around 1,200. And that's it's about a year ago. So about 1,200, 1,300 for getting a seat in the class and all that. CSU, just to get a seat in the class, 5,400. And then there's UC.
That's per semester? Or
That's a year.
quarter? A year?
That's a year.
Oh,
Yearly tuition. And that 13 grand, that's just to get a chair in the class. That's not counting living costs, paying rent, buying food. That's just to get into the class. And the community colleges teach the exact same, what we call lower division general ed classes that you're forced to take at UC. You have to take that statistics class there too, or you can take it here. You have to take this history class. You can take it here for this cost, or you can take it there for that cost. Does that make sense? So that's another reason I love teaching in community college. We are the best bargain for your money. Because if you look at the degrees that teachers around these colleges hold, a lot of them have PhDs and a lot of them are from the big universities. So you're getting basically the same quality of education that you would get at the kind of highest level. And you're paying this much for it. So I loved being a Chaffee student. I always said that if they gave out bachelor's degrees, I'd never leave. But, you know, the message is pretty clear. You can pay this for 2 or 3 years, knock out your GEs here, or you can pay these much higher costs. And these costs are going up, in case you haven't noticed. When I was at UCLA, this cost this much. From 2001 to 2003, I paid $5,500 a year. So in about 15 years, it's gone from this to this, and it's going higher.
Well, the minimum wage has gone slow.
Yeah, but it ain't growing like that. And it took years and years of activism to get that minimum wage going up. Does anyone want to take a guess at the cost of, say, per unit at the community college in the late 90s when I was a community college student? How much is it now?
47.
47 a unit? How much do you think it was in the late 90s, 20 years ago? 20? $11 a unit. So there you go. Yep. And one of the great joys I felt at UCLA is I used to go to parties and talk to all these smarmy little jerks who thought they were so smart because they got into UCLA when they were 18 right out of high school. And I said, well, wait a minute, you're paying this for 2 years that I paid this. I don't know if you're that much smarter than me. And they used to hate that. And I used to love bringing it up.
Or did they tell you, yes, but I'm rich?
Some of them did. I had a roommate who used to brag about how his parents pulled strings to get him in. Yeah, what a jerk.
Why would you brag about that?
Yeah, that is.
Because he's an idiot. But maybe he was proud of it. Yeah, I thought it was weird, but thankfully he wasn't around very much. I probably would have killed him by the end of that year. He's a jerk. Moron. But some people are really proud of it. I wasn't good enough to get on my own merit, so I had my parents pull some strings for me.
Right.
It happens frequently, especially at the big universities. They either take your money when you go watch football games or something, or they take money from rich people to pay those bills. You never hear of these things?
How is that even possible? Doesn't the college have to maintain a reputation, academic-wise? Like if they're not that good and they're not getting good grades.
Yeah, they'll take their money, and if they, at the UCs at least, if you don't make the grades, they'll kick you out. But other schools, I'm thinking like one called USC will let you just keep going forever if you just keep paying the bill.